me about a topic, and I told them that I wanted to talk about the power of proximity. Now, before I go into the entire conversation I'd like to have with you all, I like to follow the Socratic method. Are you all familiar with that type of learning and education? Cool, cool. I don't want to, just be talking at you all. I like to have a real conversation with the room. So y'all please respond to me. I'm gonna ask you all questions. Y'all can ask me questions as we go. I know that there's a point for Q&A at the end, but I like to talk in between time because you never know what could be sparked in the moment, and moments are very important. As it was stated, Fort Oak Cliff was started back in 2015, and it was started in a fourth grade classroom at W.W. Bushman Elementary School, which is located in Southeast Oak Cliff on Bonneview. The building isn't there anymore. They actually just demolished the school, but it's for a good reason. They're about to build a brand new facility over there, which is the first new build in that area of Oak Cliff for a school, maybe in a couple of decades. So it's a really special occasion that a new school will be built there. But just to give you all a little bit of my background, a little bit of who I am, so you can understand why I chose the topic, the power of proximity. I was born in Fort Worth, actually. A lot of people have been giving me flack for that, but I didn't have a choice. All right, it wasn't up to me. So, I do have some roots in Fort Worth. My mom and dad, they chose to have me birthed out there. But I was brought immediately to Oak Cliff. I grew up on a street called East Pentagon, 915 East Pentagon. It's located in South Oak Cliff. Main Street that's close to it is Marsalis Avenue. And my mother and father raised me in a home as an only child, first 10 years of my life, and then they decided to have some more kids 10 years later. More power to them on that. But they raised me in Oak Cliff. Both of my parents are from Oak Cliff. My parents grew up in the neighborhood of Singing Hills in Oak Cliff. My grandmother is from 10th Street, a freedman's town, one of the first freedman's towns in Dallas. So, my roots are really deep in the Oak Cliff community. But one of the most moving parts in my early life was my grandfather. He ran a convenience store that was called Ben & Son Grocery Store, and it was located in Glendale Shopping Center. Glendale Shopping Center is a block away from the house that I grew up in. So you could imagine, my grandfather, he had the best burgers in the city. I wish y'all could try them. The store isn't around anymore, but he had the best burgers. He was a very personable individual, gregarious, was just a community leader in his own right. The owner of the shopping center called him like the president of Glendale, and Glendale Shopping Center is like the epicenter of our community over there, and that's where everyone would come get food, go to the grocery store, it was a real thriving community hub. And while my grandfather ran that store, I was able to see so many different things and watch so many different walks of life. I didn't understand all the things that I was taking in as a child at the moment, but now as an adult looking back on it, I'm really grateful for the individuals who were there to raise me. And these were people from all walks of life, from our city council members coming in, police officers who became police chief of the city of Dallas. Chief Brown, who's from Oak Cliff as well, would be someone who would frequently come through the store. A state representative, Tony Rose, who was in college and high school at the time, but would come through to the store and get her breakfast sandwiches on the way to school. And then also you would see the individuals who were young people who were trying to find themselves in life in the 90s and all the things that were going on during that time, and also those who were dealing with mental illnesses and sicknesses and addiction. But all of those people, when they came into my grandfather's space, were treated as humans first. They were treated with kindness, they were treated with love, and they were served. And that was something that I really picked up on in that space, was service, and being able to be a servant leader and not being one to shy away from doing anything that needs to be done for the betterment of all people. So I want y'all to keep in mind all of these places that I'm telling you, all right? So 915 East Pentagon, Glendale Shopping Center, Marsalis Avenue. So that's my like corner of the world, right? It's literally like a little triangle right there. Um, so growing up in that area, you know, in the 90s, I think 1995, I don't know if any of y'all remember that year, but I think that was one of the coolest years in life. It was a lot of good things happening. If you all go look at the movies that came out in 1995, like, it's classic years. It's some classic times for films, music, and just culture as a whole. It was a thriving time, and I remember being a child absorbing all of those things. And you know, one of the first things that really became a passion and love of mine was basketball. During that time, you know, there was a guy that I thought could fly that I saw on TV. I had not a DVD, excuse me, a VHS of Michael Jordan in the park. I think that was the name of it. I'm not for sure, but I remember falling in love with basketball. And from my front, like my house, there was a creek, 5 Mile Creek. Is right in front of the house I grew up in. And on the other side of that creek was Moreland YMCA. So I asked my mom, can you please take me to Moreland YMCA? I'm trying to go play basketball. I knew that's where the court was. And she took me over there. And the day she took me, they happened to be having a dunk contest for kids under 10. And I was like, I had no idea, but I dunked the ball. And I think I was really tall for my age. So I was the only one who successfully dunked. I didn't do anything spectacular. And I got a trophy. And it was the first trophy I ever got in my life. I'll never forget it. And I was so excited. And I thought I was the next Michael Jordan. And that didn't pan out. It didn't pan out the way that I thought it would. So that's, you know, I just want y'all to get a feel, you know, like for my life. And I'll go back and let y'all know why it was so much power in that place. Fast forward in my life, I went to summer camps and just learned a lot about my history. And I was really infatuated with individuals like Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, you know, the individuals who were really moving the culture for our people and really fighting for our rights. And I said I wanted to be like Thurgood. I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to, you know, come back and represent my community in some type of meaningful way. So in high school, I started my track. You know, I continued to play basketball. I went to Skyline High School. I went to Man and His Environment Cluster, Psychology, Sociology, and Law with this idea of becoming an attorney. Went to University of North Texas, majored in poli-sci, minor in criminal justice, still aspirations to be an attorney. When I graduated from college, I got a job at the district attorney's office in Dallas. And while I was at the DA's office, I was a victim's advocate in family violence. And while I was in that role, I was studying for the LSAT. I took the LSAT. I applied to Thurgood Marshall Law School, got put on the wait list, but that's cool, you know. And I was just waiting on that moment. But in that time period, I read an article that was titled "The Cradle to Prison Pipeline." And in that article, they had every zip code in the city of Dallas broken down by the amount of inmates compared to college-ready graduates in that zip code. And I read and saw 75216 was top of that list. And at the time, there was 600 plus inmates and only 2% college-ready graduates from that zip code. Go back to where I told y'all I was from, East Pentagon, Glendale, Marsalis, Ledbetter, that's 75216. That's my upbringing. Those are my peers, that's my family, those are my, you know, friends, everything. And at that moment, I was just, I don't know, taken aback. I was really thinking about everything in my life, all the people that I knew who were incarcerated, all the people that I knew who were not college ready, and the things that happened to them when they didn't go to college. And I completely changed what I wanted to do in life. And I said, I'm gonna go be an educator. I don't know why I did that, but I chose education. And I joined Teach for America, and I was blessed to be placed in South Oak Cliff still. And I was placed there. My wife and I had recently just purchased a home in Oak Cliff, so it was like, you know, my life was beginning to unfold, and we were setting our roots in the community that I was brought up in, and I wanted to do the same for my family. But while I was at Bushman Elementary School, I went in, first year teacher, eager, ready to change the world. And Mike Tyson has a phrase that he says, you don't, what is it? He says, everybody has a plan until they get hit. And that's a very real statement. I've never been hit by Mike Tyson, but I did teach 4th grade, and that is not an easy task. So when I went in that first day of school, I remember I got there early. I really didn't even sleep the night before. I was so excited, like it was my first day of school. And I got there, and I remember seeing these little kids just waiting on me, and I was like, "What? Man, we about to have an amazing school year." And right before we got to Christmas, I realized how tired I was. I realized how much work it is to be an educator. Then I also realized how much of your students' lives become a part of your life as well. And I remember one morning while in the parking lot at Bushman, I had read about some young men that I knew that were my peers who found themselves in some trouble. I was thinking about, the standardized tests that were coming up, thinking, man, are my students prepared enough? And I was sitting in my car, and I was just thinking about how much my students had to deal with on the day-to-day. And one of my students walked up to my window, like I was, those mornings that you have where it's like, man, I just can't even really get out the car right now. And that's where I was. And I remember Deontay, he walked up and knocked on my window with the biggest smile in the world and said, "Come on, Mr. Toynes, we got to go to class." And I was like, man, that was the vote that I needed in that moment. And I got out and walked in with him. And as I walked in with him, we were just having a conversation about what he did the day before, what he was looking forward to. And really what was bringing me down that day was the curriculum that I was needing to teach. And hearing what my students were dealing with and understanding life, I just said to myself, today's not the day. I'm not gonna follow or think through any teak. I'm just gonna have time with these young people in my classroom. We're gonna connect and we're gonna learn and we're gonna grow together today. And I remember asking them, put a T-chart on the board, and I said, things that you wanna keep in your community, things that you wanna change in your community. And these are 9-year-olds, and I quickly realized their reality, and they were telling me things about they don't want to hear gunshots anymore in their community. They don't want to see drug addicts in their community anymore. They just went through this entire list of things that they wanted to see change, and it hurt me in that moment because I was thinking, man, when I was you all's age, I remember some of these same things going on in our community, and it hasn't changed. And then it was the things that they wanted to keep in their community were few. It wasn't many that they wanted to keep, but they did enjoy the culture of their school. They enjoyed their peers. They looked forward to the parks that they had, but to see them still have gratitude for the things that were existing then was an encouraging moment. But one thing that I even added to the list, things that I wanted to see change in my classroom. And I told them, one thing I want to see change is that y'all come to class with your school supplies, because I was really kind of frustrated every week going to Office Depot or the dollar store buying pens, paper, pencils, the whole 9 of school supplies. And they said, what can we do about it to help you next year? So in my class, we started to formulate a plan of how we can get school supplies for my class next year. So they told me they'll bring paper themselves, and I was like, okay, but y'all not gonna go to the store and do that for real. And we just started, brainstorming, and they were like, yeah, you should just do something at the school this summer and, have people donate. And I was like, I think that's a cool idea. So I started talking to my friends and asking them, adults young professionals at the time, would you all donate school supplies for my class next year? I talked to one of my friends who was my roommate in college. We went to middle school together, close friend of mine, Kenny Reeves. And I was talking to him on the phone one day, and I was like, man, you know, some people are telling me they want to donate. I was like, we can do something, bring attention to the school. I was like, let's have like a block party. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's do a block party at the school. And then he said, so who's it gonna be for? And he's like, it's for Bushman. And I was like, man, it's for Oak Cliff. And he said that too. And he said, I said it, and then he said it again. And I was like, you know what? That's what we're gonna call it. We're gonna call it For Oak Cliff. And I was like, man, that's a cool name. Like, you think about it, like it's simple, but it's cool. And so in that moment, For Oak Cliff as a I guess a spirit, as a name was born on that phone call with Kenny Reeves. And then as the summer progressed, more people were engaged with it, and it was like we couldn't do it at the school. So we decided we'd do something at Glendale Park, which is the park on the same street I grew up on. So again, remember, Ledbetter is where Glendale Park is. Moreland Y, MCA, where I got my first trophy, is also on Ledbetter. Marsalis is the street that intersects with Ledbetter, and Pentagon is my street that runs into Marsalis. So all right here. So Glendale Park, I learned how to swim at that park, learned how to play some basketball at that park. It was a really special thing to me, so I was like, let's go there. So figured it out, got everything situated for Glendale Park to be the hosting place for this event. And I had no idea what a nonprofit was. I had no idea how to fundraise. I didn't know any of these things, but I had the heart to get these school supplies for my kids. To make a long story shorter, August 15th, 2015, the For Oak Cliff Back to School Festival is at Glendale Park, starting at 9 o'clock that morning. I had no idea what would happen, but along the way, the United Way had reached out to me and they said, hey, we heard about what you're trying to do. We want to come in and support and be a sponsor. It's like, of course, I don't have any money anyway, so thank you. They came in, they told me they'd do exactly whatever I wanted to do in that park. And on August 15, 2015, there was 2,000 people in that park. We were able to pass out 1,000 backpacks with school supplies in them. So the basis of the festival was a voter registration drive, job fair, college fair, school supply giveaway. Because I saw so many times that there would be things for children, but there wouldn't be anything for their parents. So if the parents are gonna bring their kids out, let's activate them as well. If you're not registered to vote, let's get you registered to vote. You need employment, let's get you employment. And once that movement got going with the festival, a friend came to me on that day and was like, man, you gotta take this to another level. This is more than just this event. It has to become, you know, its own nonprofit entity. So fast forward years down the line, we can fast forward from 15 to 2018. I did a lot of research. Between that time, I got a degree from SMU. I got a master's in education, where I was introduced to an organization called the Harlem Children's Zone, located in New York City, run by a man named Jeffrey Canada. And Jeffrey Canada came up with this concept of this 100-block radius in Harlem. We started with one block, and he said that it was very important to go deep into that one community. And that was something that hit me hard, because I said, yeah, that's what I want to do in my community. I want to go deep. So I started researching more of what Jeffrey Canada was doing in Harlem and the different things that he was using to activate his community, from doing a baby college to having these cradle to career pipeline aspirations, bringing all these partners in. And I learned all these different things, and I came up with For Oak Cliff and what it would be. And that's where we got our mission during that time. The mission of For Oak Cliff is we aim to liberate Oak Cliff from systemic oppression through a culture of education while increasing social mobility and social capital. Those words in that mission are very exact for a reason. You know, culture of education. When I think about our community, I think about the young people who are there. A lot of them are not illiterate. You know, we hear that phrase a lot, of people being illiterate, but it's because a lot of young people become anti-literate. Literacy isn't a thing that people were taught to love growing up, and that's a cultural issue. Systemic oppression, when I think of myself as a black man growing up in Texas, not many generations ago, it was illegal to even learn how to read. You could be threatened with death or losing a limb. And if you think about that for, centuries of a race of people who were threatened when they learned how to read, what would end up happening? Like when you have people, we think about, when slaves were freed in Texas, that was in 1865. You think about how many generations that is later, and what was instilled in those individuals' minds when they were raising their children, it was, don't even learn how to read, why waste your time? For the masses, right? Some people were radical and went forward with it, but that's something that has still been passed down, and that's what we want to do, is build that culture of education, make learning exciting. That's how I used to start my day with my students every day. I'd ask them, what is learning? And they'd yell back, exciting. So building that culture of education is very important. Increasing social mobility. When we think about our community, South Oak Cliff, the super block, the area that we call it, the median household income is roughly $20,000 annually. So in order for a family to grow, we want them to increase their social mobility so that they won't be stuck at the bottom, so their children can have some financial, stability to stand on. So increasing workforce opportunities, helping people get things like their GEDs so they can go make more money, and then even go into a trade or whatever it is that they would want to do. But the most important to me is increasing social capital. Social capital is probably the best capital that we can have. When you think of it, I ask you all, would you all tell me this? Would you all rather me give you $50,000 cash right now, or would you rather become best friends with the richest person in the world? Which would you choose? What would you? You take the friend? I would too. I would too. That's social capital. It's the people that you can call on. It's the people that you have that are around you. And make it even more simple to you is, imagine a young person. You could take two young people on the same tracks. It could be a young man that's driving and gets pulled over because he doesn't have his license or his tags are expired. One of their fathers could be the CEO of a hospital. The other one doesn't even know who their father is. The CEO of the hospital, when his son gets pulled over for not having his license, he can call him. Whatever trouble that he's in, his father has someone that could help him. The one who doesn't have that is on his own. Go past that. Whenever those young men or young women graduate from high school, if their parents have that social capital around them, think about the internships that one would be able to get and the other one would not, because they just don't know the people. So for me, 4 Oak Cliff has become a space where our volunteers, our members, our young people, being able to bring them together to create new relationships, because social capital exists no matter who you are. You just got to think about if you're in the positive or if you're in the negatives in your social capital. So at 4 Oak Cliff, we want to increase the social capital of the super block. My mic went out, but can y'all hear me? Okay. Not you, Siri. Sorry, y'all. But that was one of the things that we really were focusing on, was increasing that social capital, social mobility, and bringing in a culture of education. So again, proximity, the power of it all, right? Because that's really been my life. 4 Oak Cliff would not have existed if the people who came before me were not putting in the work in the community that I grew up in and that has nurtured me. 4 Oak Cliff would not have existed if I didn't know about a Glendale Park, because that was the perfect place to host the festival. 4 Oak Cliff would not have existed if I didn't grow up at 915 East Pentagon and was able to go and be in that community and learn the different things that I was able to learn at that time. So we were at 2018, we became this entity, this movement, and guess where our first office space was? In Glendale Shopping Center. Was able to get a 250 square foot office space in that shopping center. I could see my grandfather's convenience store from the front window every morning. So it was really inspiring and encouraging to be in that space and launch what would become this place-based movement for the entire community. That 250 square foot office space grew to become a 2,500 square foot space, state-of-the-art redevelopment done by the real estate council, which we were really thankful for, and just, had a space to really grow and offer programs and activities for our young people. It was amazing for us at the time, not knowing what all was in store for us. And then 2020, we go from 2018 to 2020, we found ourselves in the pandemic. And it was really a tough time to figure out what would we do in that moment. Who would 4 Oak Cliff become? And in that time period, we realized that we have to be practitioners to the things that we were speaking about. And we completely shifted and began doing food distribution every week. Every week at 4 Oak Cliff, we were giving out 30,000 pounds of food every week. And that was no easy task. But we realized how much our community were in need of something as simple as a meal. And during that time, the YMCA that I told you all about, it closed. And that was a sad moment for the community because they closed in that September of that year. But the moment that I learned that the YMCA closed, my next question is, what's gonna happen to the building? And they let us know that they putting the YMCA up for sale. So on faith, completely on faith, I said, let's go get the building. It was in the middle of a pandemic. We were still figuring it out. We're a young organization. And the YMCA actually had, they vetted the individuals who would be able to even have an opportunity to purchase the building. And we had to go through a whole process. And then I remember them calling saying, we want to sell it to 4 Oak Cliff. And it was really go time at that moment. And once they said that, we signed the contract to be able to purchase the building, and we moved from our space in Glendale Shopping Center to now Moreland YMCA, which is less than a quarter of a mile away from Glendale. And I remember the first day getting those keys and looking from the back of the field right at my bedroom window and thinking about, like, man, I remember looking out from the other side at that building and thinking, like, that's where I can go get my dreams from. Like, I can go learn how to play basketball in that building. Like, just, I was thinking about my child self, and was how excited I was to step foot into that gym for the first time. And now we have this building, and I was thinking to myself, how many more children are gonna be that much more excited to come into this space and live out their dreams just like I thought about as a kid. And fast forward a little bit more, we go into the building, we make it our own. And within 18 months, we paid the building off. So now 4 Oak Cliff owns the building. And it's more than just a building. It's a 20,000 square foot facility that sits on 10 acres. And since being in that building, we have 4 pillars of our work: education, advocacy, community building, and the arts. We've hosted 2 summer camps since we've been there. We redone the pool, so the pool will be opening this month, Memorial Day. So if y'all want to come get you a swim in, come swim in our pool. We renovated the gym with the Dallas Mavericks, and now the gym is this state-of-the-art court. We were able to get the Mavericks throwback retro court on our floor. It's a really cool space. And all the time that I'm sitting there, there's one thing that I left out from you all. So looking out the back door, I can see my childhood home. Walking out the front door, I can see the church that I got baptized in as a child as well. So I sit in that space and I think about, like, man, I just reflect about how powerful it is to be here. I could have gone anywhere in the world. When I think about being in Teach for America, they could have put me in Maine, they could have put me in Oregon, they could have put me anywhere in the world, but they placed me right back in Oak Cliff. And I thought about it, and people make fun of me all the time. They say, Taylor, you never leave the super block. The super block is our targeted area that we in. It was like, we don't see you anywhere but on Ledbetter or on Marsalis, or just, that's it. I really don't go many places, and I really be there all the time. And I told them, like, man, well, when I leave from this area, I lose power. It's like a superhero, like the further I get away, the weaker I become. But the truth to it though is that it is true power in that for me, because every person who raised me made me realize how important my community was. All of the young people who have made a major impact on my life let me know how encouraging the work is and in the space. And just this week, the graduating class of 23 from South Oak Cliff High School, they had their senior field day and they were at 4 Oak Cliff. It was such a surreal moment because those same fourth graders that I taught at Bushman Elementary, this is their graduating class. So all of them were in the building. All of them were able to tell me like, yeah, Mr. Toynes, I'm going to school here. I'm going to Grambling. I'm going to Prairie View. And I'm just taking it all in as, you know, they also in the gym telling me how much they think they can beat me in basketball and all of these things. And I'm like, man, I'm hyper aware of what's happening in the moment. And I'm like, I let them know, like, look at what y'all have done though. You know, like how proud I am of y'all, and let them know that this does not exist without you all. And I think about them now that they're graduating and what they told me when they were in 4th grade of what they wanted to see change in their community. And from when they were in 4th grade to now graduating, some things that have changed in the neighborhood. One, the school that they went to, brand new state-of-the-art school about to be built starting this year. They tore it down, they're about to start constructing the new elementary school over there. South Oak Cliff High School, where they're graduating from this year, brand new state-of-the-art school rebuilt right there on Marsalis. Right across the street from South Oak Cliff High School, Renaissance Park was rebuilt. It was an empty lot field, just a dumping ground. Now there's a beautiful park that's right across the street from their school. Glendale Park, that we host the annual Back to School Festival at, has a $20 million master plan underway right now, taking place. 4 Oak Cliff, the organization that we started in that classroom, has now, we're celebrating the 10th annual Back to School Festival, just 10 years as an organization next summer, and gone from an idea in a classroom to now a state-of-the-art place-based movement that has a 20,000 square foot building that sits on 10 acres. So if anything that 4 Oak Cliff or myself has been able to do is, one, is to show those young people that were in my class that you are a change agent, that there is power in your community, that you don't have to leave and go away, that you can make the impact right here and right now. And that's where the proximity is. None of these things can happen if we aren't close to them. The closer that you are to things, the more that you can realize what needs to be done. You can see the intricacies of the things. You can understand what's going on more than anyone else. And then there's intel that you receive from proximity that you would never get any other way because you become part of it. And that's been the power for me. And ultimately for me also, it's changed my life. My daughter, she goes to school in the super block right now. She's at Harry Stone. I have a son. My son is a year old. He's at 4 Oak Cliff right now, ironically, with my team over there. So proximity, if anything that you all do, keep that in mind. You know, I know that as human beings, we move around, and that's not just proximity to a place, but if it's something that you love, something that you're truly passionate about, get as close to it as you possibly can. Become a part of it because there's power in that. And that's it for y'all today. I appreciate it. What has surprised me the most? It's a hard question because I've seen so many surprising things that it's kind of hard to pinpoint one. I guess it's surprising to me at how naturally everything has flowed through this time. I say a lot of times, like, you know, this is an ordained mission and journey that I've been on. It's been it's been God's plan for me to do these things. But I would say the most out of the box, surprising thing that has happened to me in this journey was being on stage at WrestleMania. That was the most surprising thing. I'll be honest about that. Last year, WrestleMania was in Dallas, and the WWE reached out and was like, "Hey, we want to support Fort Oak Cliff as a community org." And I was like, "Okay, cool." I didn't know what that meant, but WrestleMania comes. They gave us a belt. It's a really cool belt. We got a championship belt. We were on stage, and we were part of the show. Like, we were on TV for WrestleMania. The one thing that I wish I would have done differently at WrestleMania, I had the urge to do it really, really bad. I didn't do it, and I regret it today. I should have ran to the ring. Because they had us like on stage. I should have ran to the ring, dove in and held up the belt for the whole neighborhood, but I didn't know what would happen. But it's WrestleMania. That kind of stuff is supposed to happen. It's supposed to be off script. So yeah, that was surprising because walking out, it was crazy. Like on stage at WrestleMania, walking off stage, walking into it, Vince McMahon was standing like at the control booth backstage. And I was like, "What's up, Vince?" I saw him back there. When I'm walking out, like literally on the aisle walking up, the Undertaker walked right past me. So I dapped up the Undertaker. I was like, "What's up, man? It's good to see you." And I was just part of it, So now, myself, Xavier Henderson, we call ourselves, we're the undisputed tag team champs of the community right now. So, we had that belt, and I'd say that was the most surprising thing overall. Yes, sir. Thank you.
And what can we do? I feel like there's a gap between the north side and the south side.
Yeah.
What can we do to bridge the gap and so that the north side of the south side can, be closer, integrated together?
So I think that it should be natural, for one. It should be something that just becomes a part of your natural everyday. But come to Fort Oak Cliff. We have a farmer's market. If you all, want to come support, we have a farmer's market the first and third Saturday of every month. We just had the first one this past weekend. So the next one will be on the 20th, I believe is the date. You can come out to our farmer's market first and third Saturday of every month. You come volunteer with us. There's an amazing bookstore that's in Glendale Shopping Center, Pan-African Connection. It's the largest Black-owned bookstore in the country. You can go over there. I think that we have the best food between North Oak Cliff and South Oak Cliff, so come, eat. I think South Oak Cliff has better food. Not that North Oak Cliff doesn't have good food, because it does. But yeah.
Top 5 food in South Oak Cliff.
Top 5 food, South Oak Cliff. All right.
That's a good question.
All right, because I'm on camera. So, this isn't in specific order, but you gotta go to Sweet Georgia Brown. I think that Sweet Georgia Brown has some really good food. Ronnie's Catfish is really good. Catfish Floyd's is also a really good food spot. If you want a huge burger, go to Wingfield's Burgers. That's a pretty good spot. Let me think, who else would I put in there in top 5 food in South Oak Cliff? My wife's cooking. That's gonna round out my list. Yeah, my wife, she's the best. And we in South Oak Cliff, so that would be those are my 5.
So you're inviting us all over?
Yeah, one day. One day. Go ahead.
What are some events and programs y'all have going on right now? And also, what's the age range of people that you serve?
Yeah, so I'll start with the age range question. At Fort Oak Cliff, I believe in the concept of from embryo to success. That's how I look at age range. So I want to work with people who have child in the womb because that's where learning starts. So right now, some programs that we have going on currently is we have a lot of out of school time programs taking place. So in the evenings on Mondays and Wednesdays, we have a program in partnership with Big Thought that's called Artivism, where it's for middle and high school age students that are learning about activism but using the arts to be able to do that. We also have a program at Fort Oak Cliff that's called Lena, and Lena is really for brain development for youth or for toddlers. And what it does is a child wears this pedometer for 18 hours, 1 day out of the week. And when they do that, the pedometer picks up on the words the child says and how many words that they hear. It doesn't get them verbatim, but it just picks up on the vibrations of the sound. And it's really beneficial because the data shows us that more fluent children they hear 130 million words more than those who are not by the time they're 5 years old. So that's one thing that we're able to use at Fort Oak Cliff to help parents, understand talking to your child is the first way to teach them how to read and to develop their brain. So Lena is going on. We have athletics in the evenings as well. We just wrapped up a phlebotomy course that we have. We just graduated our 3rd cohort of phlebotomists from Fort Oak Cliff. I think 60 people have gotten a phlebotomy certificate at Fort Oak Cliff. We host a GED class every evening as well as Saturday mornings. And the summertime is where things like really take off. I like to say we own the summer in Oak Cliff. So we'll have the pool, we'll have our summer camp going on, we'll have teen internships going on. The farmers markets will still take place every 1st and 3rd Saturday of the month. We're gonna kick the summer off with the Juneteenth Festival if you all are free. On June 17th, we'll have the Fort Oak Cliff Juneteenth celebration at the campus. And then we end it all with the Back to School Festival, which will be August the 12th, I believe, this year. Yeah, August the 12th will be the 9th annual Fort Oak Cliff Back to School Festival. But there's a lot of things always going on at Fort Oak Cliff, even things that we aren't organizing because it's open space. It's 10 acres of land, so people up there playing, doing whatever on the park. So those are some of the things that are happening right now.